What could possibly drive a nation to invade its neighbor in the 21st century? As we delve into the depths of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, this question becomes a beacon guiding our exploration. It's a tale of power and politics, of old grudges and new ambitions. It unravels the complex web of motivations, strategies, and consequences that have set the stage for one of the most significant geopolitical events of our time. The answers to these queries lie in understanding the series of events that led to this invasion. To comprehend the motivations behind this conflict, we must first delve into its history. Let's rewind to the autumn of 2021. CIA Director Bill Burns is dispatched to Moscow by President Joe Biden to warn Russia about a troop buildup near Ukraine's border. The Biden administration, on high alert, is closely scrutinizing the situation and ramping up efforts to de-escalate tensions between Moscow and Kiev. Yet assessments on Russia's motives are far from unanimous within the administration. Concerns range from a potential invasion to mere intimidation tactics. The U.S. in particular is on edge about Russia possibly using its gas exports as leverage. Satellite images show irregular troop movements, stoking fears of a possible invasion. Despite Russian denials, U.S. officials remain vigilant, conducting intense outreach to allies to address the looming threat. Fast forward to the early months of 2023. 1 year after the invasion of Ukraine, cracks are beginning to show in the facade of Putin's rule as Russia reverts to a repressive past. Putin's government has clamped down on civil society, imprisoned political opponents like Alexei Navalny, and is attempting to reassert Russia as an empire. Defying protests and sanctions, Putin is leading Russia into an uncertain new phase. Speculation is rife about another wave of mobilization and signs of elite competition in Moscow. Putin's recent visit to Volgograd, steeped in historical symbolism, seems to hint at a potential new offensive in Ukraine. Russia's military strategy has taken a turn towards a war of attrition, adapting to challenges such as Western tank deliveries to Ukraine. The involvement of the private military company Wagner Group, led by oligarch Prigozhin, reflects brutal tactics reminiscent of Soviet history. Prigozhin's rising profile sparks speculation about his potential challenge to Putin's power. Even in 2022, echoes of dissent could be heard within Russia. A commentator on Russian state TV criticized Putin's invasion, a rare and bold move in a media landscape tightly controlled by the Kremlin. This criticism, however, was an exception in the otherwise unanimous chorus of support for the invasion within Russia's state-run media. Having traced the timeline of events, we now turn our attention to the key player in this geopolitical drama, Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin, a man of many faces, has his reasons for launching this war. Let's delve into the motivations that have led to this conflict. A complex web of power, politics, and personal ambition. At the heart of Putin's motivations is a desire to reassert Russia as a global power. He yearns for the days when Russia was a formidable empire, a force to be reckoned with on the world stage. The invasion of Ukraine can be seen as a step towards this goal. By flexing Russia's military muscles, Putin is sending a clear message to the world. Russia is back, and it's not afraid to use force to assert its interests. But Putin's motivations aren't solely focused on the international stage. Domestically, the war serves as a tool to suppress internal dissent. In the past few years, we've seen Putin's government clamp down on civil society, imprisoning political opponents and stifling voices of opposition. The war provides a convenient distraction, a rallying point that unites the nation against a common enemy and diverts attention away from internal issues. The conflict also provides Putin with a valuable bargaining chip in international politics. The threat of escalation keeps world powers on their toes, forcing them to negotiate with Russia in an attempt to keep the peace. This gives Putin a seat at the table, ensuring that Russia's interests are taken into account in global decision-making. However, this is a dangerous game Putin is playing. The invasion has led to widespread condemnation and sanctions from the international community. It has also sparked a wave of protests within Russia, hinting at a growing discontent with Putin's rule. Factor in the military challenges. such as the Western tank deliveries to Ukraine and the involvement of private military companies like the Wagner Group. And we see a Russia that is adapting to new realities on the ground. These brutal tactics, reminiscent of Soviet history, suggest a shift towards a war of attrition, a war that could potentially drag on for years. This war is not just about Ukraine. It's about Putin's vision for Russia, his quest for power, and his determination to leave a lasting legacy. It's about a man who is willing to risk it all in pursuit of his ambitions. But what are the possible outcomes of this war? As we move forward, we find ourselves asking this crucial question. The answer, however, is as complex as the man who started it all. Let's explore this in the next segment. Predicting the future in such volatile situations is always a gamble, but we can make educated guesses based on the current state of affairs. In the grand chessboard of international politics, outcomes are rarely binary. As we look ahead, we can envision several possible scenarios that could unfold in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. First, let's consider the international pressure. The world has reacted with a chorus of condemnation and sanctions. These economic measures have the potential to squeeze Russia's economy, making it harder for them to sustain a prolonged military campaign. But as history has shown us, sanctions can often have unintended consequences, sometimes even consolidating the power of the leaders they aim to punish. Next, let's turn our gaze inward to the internal politics of Russia. A year after the invasion, we're seeing faint cracks in Putin's rule. Even within the confines of state-controlled media, there have been instances of dissent. The longer the conflict drags on, the more these cracks could potentially widen. This could lead to a power shift within Russia. Speculation abounds about the rising profile of oligarch Prigozhin. Could he pose a challenge to Putin's power? It's a tantalizing question, but one that remains shrouded in uncertainty. Lastly, we cannot overlook the resilience of Ukraine. Despite the overwhelming odds, Ukraine has put up a valiant fight. The spirit of resistance runs deep within its people. If they continue to hold their ground, it could become increasingly difficult for Russia to justify the mounting costs of the war, both in terms of resources and human lives. So, what might the end of the war look like? It could be a negotiated settlement, driven by international pressure and the economic toll of the conflict. Or perhaps, internal shifts within Russia could steer the course of events in unexpected directions. Conversely, the war could continue to grind on, with Ukraine's resolve acting as a bulwark against Russian advances. Remember, these are just educated guesses. The reality is often far more complex than any prediction can encapsulate. But one thing is certain, the decisions made today on the battlegrounds of Ukraine and in the halls of power around the world will reverberate through history. Only time will tell how this conflict will shape the future of Russia, Ukraine, and the world at large. In the end, the Russia-Ukraine conflict serves as a grim reminder of the fragile state of world peace. Throughout our discussion, we've delved into the why and why now of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, taking a deep dive into the historical context that set the stage for this conflict. We've also dissected the motivations of Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, exploring his strategic maneuvers and the justifications he has presented to the world. We've analyzed the potential outcomes of this war, predicting a landscape fraught with uncertainty, yet also with opportunities for resolution and change. The stakes are high, with implications reaching far beyond the borders of these two nations, impacting global politics, economies, and the very fabric of international relations. As we continue to monitor this evolving situation, one thing is certain. The world is watching, waiting, and hoping for a peaceful resolution.